Welcome back to More Money Minutes for Doctors. So, doctor, have you ever thought about FOMO, that fear of missing out? Today, we're going to be talking a lot about FOMO, good FOMO and bad FOMO. I'm Katherine, CEO and founder of MD Financial Advisors, and I have a very, very special guest with us today. I have Ben Kirchner, one of our amazing financial advisors. Love working with Ben. Thanks for joining us, Ben.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Katherine.
One of the things I love about Ben is he is so awesome. I would be very happy if he were managing my own money, and that's exactly the kind of people I want to work with. So, yay. Thanks, Ben.
Appreciate that.
So today we're talking about FOMO, particularly when it comes to doctors, that fear of missing out. So give us a little background about this. What do you think? How do you see FOMO coming with your clients? And Ben works
FOMO, yeah,
with a lot of younger clients, and so that'll be some of his basis of experience. So go ahead.
absolutely. So I think that's a concept that comes up a lot with our doctors, Katherine, is they don't want to be left behind. They feel maybe they're getting a start later in life because they've had such a long road of education that they're trying to get on track and get on track as fast as they can. So sometimes that means they're doing things that maybe we wouldn't necessarily agree would build a good foundation for their financial plan. So today, instead of focusing on the fear of missing out, like maybe being bummed you didn't get in on Apple 20 years ago, or maybe not getting a house before interest rates went up, all that certainly can cause fear of missing out. But I want to focus on the things we should really be fearing that we miss each and every year that can build an incredibly solid foundation for the future.
I love that. So we're talking about the FOMO you should be having as opposed to the
Exactly.
FOMO you shouldn't have. And Ben is a great expert on this topic because he has literally helped hundreds of our doctors build better financial plans. Or as he likes to say, our forte is taking high income doctors and turning them into high net worth. So that's really
Absolutely.
how do we use FOMO to become a high net worth doctor? So first of all, how are you defining financial planning FOMO?
Financial planning FOMO is really fearing that you're going to miss out on the things that only come around one time a year. So we have a certain amounts of opportunities that come around every year. Some of the highlights I like to bring up to clients might be backdoor Roth funding, or perhaps if you're on a high yield, or HSA plan, health savings account plan, you can only fund that once a year. Similarly, there's some opportunities for Roth conversions where you could get your pre-tax dollars into post-tax dollars, not pay taxes on that for the future. All of these things are elements we want to take advantage of each and every year because we can't go and reverse the clock and fund that in reverse. So the best time to start is now.
And what I like about your examples is this is good FOMO because all of these things that you're talking about, whether it's funding your backdoor Roth, whether it's doing a conversion or use it or lose it, to your point, we cannot go back
Exactly.
and backfill. So we really have to take advantage of each and every one of those when we can. So how does this look mathematically, though? I think that's something our audience would really like to see.
Definitely. So I put together a chart here that I'm going to bring up on the screen. This just gets to the heart of the power of compound interest, which is something you and I talk a lot about, Katherine, is starting early and starting often. But certainly the earlier you can start saving, the better. What we have illustrated on the screen here is two examples of things that I would consider financial planning FOMO if you miss it. And that's doing your backdoor Roth, which is a $7,000 a year contribution, and maximizing your plan at work, which is usually going to be a $23,000 plan limit, regardless of whether that's a 401k or a 403b. So if we take a peek here, that's $30,000 a year. If you started that
So
in this,
that's really important part. So we're talking about adding your work plan, your $23,000 plus your $7,000 into a backdoor Roth. That's how we got
that
$30,000.
is exactly right. Yep. So, I wanted to show Dr. One here at age 35, they start funding this backdoor Roth. They start funding this 401k, we'll call it. And they fund that all the way until age 50 when they get to do a little bit extra as catch-up contributions. Now they're doing $8,000 a year into their backdoor Roth IRA. They're doing $30,500 into their 401k. So we play this out to age 65, and we're comparing it in doctor number two here's scenario where they started a little late. They started at age 41
And by the way,
Um,
we see this all the time, don't we?
we do.
And what happens? What are those doctors thinking that are not starting till their early 40s to even start saving?
There can be a combination of factors. I think one of the errors sometimes is thinking too sequentially. So
Yeah,
they're thinking, I got to pay off all my student loans potentially, or I need to save up a big down payment for a home, when there's other avenues to get into homes that could potentially free up some of that capital. There's just a lot of justification because you want to feel comfortable, feel like you're on solid ground, which we certainly want you to have the basics, the foundation in place. But the power of time, you'll see here in a minute, is so crucial to helping you retire, and retire in some cases early, that we really don't want to miss some of these key opportunities. And this is why I want to call this the financial plan fear of missing out, because you can't go back and redo those 5 years missed. And just to share a little bit, we run this scenario out from 35 to 65. That's $1,066,000 that were put in. We contrast that to the person who started about 5, 6 years later. They put in 916,000. So simply $150,000 difference ended up with the doctor number one having 3.2 million, and you contrast that to doctor number two having 2.2 million. So that $150,000 difference ended up being $1 million difference when you run it out over the course of really 30 years.
a huge. And when we look at it on paper, for most of our doctors over time, 150,000 is not that much money.
Not at all.
And I can find almost every doctor could find enough in their budget to be able to do this. And look at the difference, that $1 million difference. Of course, we'd all like an extra $1 million, but that can very often make the difference of, can you retire on time? Let's say you want to retire at 65, or you're going to have to push your retirement out to maybe 72, because you're going to need those extra years at the end of your working career to make up that $1 million difference.
You said it right. Exactly. Exactly. And not to mention that all of what we illustrated here on the screen too is through tax advantage savings. So there's some way, whether now in the present or in the future, that you're going to get this money in a tax advantage manner. So it's even more impactful than even what can be illustrated just on this simple spreadsheet.
Yeah, that's a great point. Is in this situation, if they were using their Roth accounts at work plus their Roth IRA, this extra $1 million is $1 million tax free.
Yes.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
I'm really glad you brought that up. It's very powerful.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So when it comes to FOMO, one of the things I've noticed is I sometimes get doctors in their like mid 40s to early 50s that haven't been saving enough, to be frank. And they're starting to look at their colleagues, and they're realizing their colleagues have a lot more money than they do. And they're feeling they're behind the 8 ball, and they want to take a lot of risks because
Yeah,
they're trying to play catch up. So this is FOMO at its worst in my mind.
absolutely.
And I'm thinking very often what happens when they get into this situation is they feel like they've got to go for broke, just put everything on black red at the roulette wheel, or black or red on the roulette. Flip it
I hear
around.
you.
You can tell I do not go to Vegas, and I don't know how to gamble. But they might come to us and say, oh, I've got the stock, it's going to go to the moon, I've got some inside information, or I think this is going to do really well, or maybe it's cryptocurrency. What happens in those situations? What do you suggest?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that. I think we need to work with the information we have at hand, and certainly there can be stocks that perform well. And there are time periods, we've certainly seen it with certain stocks or even cryptocurrency, where they've done outstanding. But we really have to emphasize the shield of diversification, because you look back at some companies, like for example General Electric years ago. I looked at this today. They peaked in like October of 2000. Their share price was around 300 per share. Lots of their employees had stock in that share, and it was going up. You would never think that it would go down. They were on top of
Sure.
the world. Well, it plummeted years later. People who had their retirement accounts stocked in that, really felt the impact of that, and never were the same, and still aren't to this day. The share price is worth $160 today.
Oh,
And when we're multiplying that by many hundreds of thousands of dollars, that's a significant impact. Whereas we want to utilize an approach that is emphasizing academia, emphasizing evidence, holding thousands of companies so that even if a portion of your portfolio is not doing well, there's likely another portion that will be doing well, which is what we do with so many of our doctors to make sure that they can get to that finish line and really need money when they need it. Your money, your returns don't matter. What matters is when I mean, they do matter, of course, but you need those returns to count when you really need to draw that money, which is in retirement. And to put it all on black, as you said, is way too risky of a strategy to be able to wake up tomorrow and have confidence that it'll be there when you need it most.
I think that is very well said. And I will tell you, in all my many decades of in this business, I have never once ever seen this work for a doctor. Now, to your point, yes, there may be years that cryptocurrency or whatever it is does a little bit better than our approach. And I'll be frank, sometimes our approach gets kind of boring for clients. To Ben's point, most of our clients have about 14,000 different companies in their portfolios. We use ETFs, primarily some mutual funds. And sometimes that seems just a little bit too pedestrian for some of our clients.
Mhm.
But here's the problem with that. It is a tortoise and hare analogy, if we remember our Aesop fables, right?
Yes.
Tortoise and hare start off at the starting line, and everybody thinks the tortoise is going to win, but the tortoise gets caught up with shiny objects, gets caught in the briar patch. I may be mixing up my Aesop fables here, but eventually, as we all know, it is the tortoise that goes across the line first. So what we want to do is a very methodical, predictable, diversified approach where we have the minimum effective dose of risk, the minimum effective dose on the amount of money that we're investing over time. And we just found that works better. If stock picking worked, we'd be doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. And fortunately, it doesn't work in a way, fortunately, because it gives us a little bit more peace of mind to rely on things that we have a lot of data to back up.
Right. That evidence-based approach is hugely important to our clients. Now, what would you say to the doctor that feels that they can't take advantage of starting early and for whatever reason, they just can't do it?
I think this is a huge fallacy I come across a lot with doctors and their families is they just feel like I can't do this, so I'm not going to do it at all. Well, a little is better than nothing. $100 today saved is worth, $500 down the road, even just several years down the road. So as we saw in that example I shared, the earlier you can start, the better. So I would say always take advantage of even these little base hits. So maybe you can't maximize your 401k this year. Well, you better be sure to maximize it enough to get the match from your employer because you don't want to leave any free money on the table. And these are still areas of FOMO where it doesn't have to be an all or nothing conversation, but it's what can we save? What can we reasonably save this year? We may not be able to hit the maximum in our accounts, but what can we do to continue to put our best foot forward? And when times are more freed up with income, that's when we put more money in. So when those times do become more lean, you're not as worried, and you've already, your past self helps your future self, as my wife and I always say.
That is so true. I think that's a great way to look at this. Will your future self thank you for what you're doing today? So this just reminds me of this wonderful couple. We had a couple of psychiatrists. They're both out of Texas. We've probably been working with them 12, 13 years now. And when we started, I'm thinking to myself, this is never going to work. Everything you can imagine. They were having babies. They needed a new deck on the house. They bought another house. It was just thing after thing after thing, and they just couldn't get started. And I really felt sorry for them. I liked them so much. Yeah, I just wanted to keep helping them. Today, here we are, like 10 years later, they're looking at like $1 million in their brokerage accounts. And sure,
Fantastic.
they did a little bit during those first few years. I didn't think it was enough, to be frank, but they did a little bit. And then over time, as they got the deck done, then they increased it, and they increased it. And now they've got $1 million. And I'd say, good on them. That's what we want. I've also found with doctors, If we take the money out of the account before they ever see it, that works really well for them and they don't stress about it. And lo and
Mhm.
behold, their subconscious seems to just spend the money that's left. And that helps them get started right away so they don't miss out on anything.
Yeah, you're speaking to two really key things. I think automating your saving strategy is key, and even your spending strategy, so you know your bills are taken care of. They're going to come out of your account at a certain time of the year and a certain time of the month, I should say. But then that just allows you to spend those other dollars freely. And even before that, I think you got to something really key, Catherine, which is just flexing that savings muscle a little bit. It's a lot like working out. You're probably not going to start out running 10 miles, but you may start out running a mile. You may just need to start saving a small, modest amount into an account and then circle back, see, does this even impact your monthly budget? And just tweak that over time. So as time goes on, you're saving subconsciously, and your accounts are going to thank you. That army of dollars is going to work for you, whether you're awake or asleep, and that's the goal, to not be working forever.
Exactly right. Do you have any other examples or anything else ways you've seen this play out in real life?
Yeah, I would say when I think of the cases we've worked with over the years, Catherine, there's certain clients who just strategically put money away, do the boring stuff we're telling them to do, um, versus, and I can compare and contrast them to another person in their profession. So, for example, I'm thinking of two clients that are orthopedic surgeons right now in my brain. One has just consistently socked it away in the traditional diversified approach, and I've seen his net worth skyrocket. He became a millionaire in a matter of years, versus the other client that is chasing what I would call those home run hits, trying to get into new startups, trying to get into more sexy, fun investment options. And I just can't say that I've seen the same results in that same portfolio. And it's easy to think that you'll have enough time to overcome those bad mistakes, but you really don't know. You really don't know um, how long these working years will go, how good of money you'll make in these working years all the time. So you might as well live off of a healthy amount of your income, but still save a healthy portion, doing something that's consistent, that's going to provide you the opportunity to retire and retire well, instead of trying to do it as a coin flip overall.
Yes, I like that. We don't want to use the coin flip. And I know a lot of our clients do get very seduced by you
Hmm.
mentioned startups and some of these other things that they really want to invest in. I've got a family member who's actually runs a hedge fund, and a lot of cryptocurrency in this hedge fund, a lot of high tech companies there. And he said to me that out of the 25 companies that they put into each of their pools, they only expect one to make money. The rest are likely to go under. So when you're thinking about investing in something, the next big thing, be aware that you only have a 1 in 25 chance that this is going to be making money. You have 24 chances out of 25 that you're going to be losing money
Definitely.
on this particular deal. It's very, very sobering. So one of the things I love to do for clients, though, is they will very frequently call us and ask us to evaluate these investments, which we do. And I will give them an honest opinion on the investments. But I also will tell them, after going through and analyzing them, would I invest in this account? And I can think of one case where I actually recommended the doctor invest in it. And it's not that I thought the investment was any good. I actually thought the investment probably wouldn't work out. But he had plenty of money for retirement. He wasn't married. His daughter was educated. It was $25,000. If he lost all 25,000, he'd still be able to retire on time with plenty of money.
Hmm.
It wasn't going to sabotage it. I'm like, fine, go ahead, if you want to do it. It turns out that I'm pretty sure it's completely tanked. But the key thing was it wasn't going to sabotage his plans for the future. Now,
Hmm.
that's much different than we get a 32-year-old doctor, a 38-year-old doctor that's putting all sorts of money in something like this when they don't even have an emergency fund. They haven't started saving for their kids' education. It was just an entirely different place. So
Absolutely.
couple takeaways from this little piece here is, if you're thinking about one of these investments and you're one of our beloved clients, reach out to us. We'll talk you through the pros and the cons, and then you can make a really good decision.
Definitely.
And be careful about the shiny objects. Remember the
Yep.
hair.
The tortoise and the hare, it's incredible, but at the same time, the tortoise comes ahead and wins the race, and that's where you want to be. You want to be a victor at the end of this and
Exactly.
all along the way.
And all along the way. Exactly right. So Ben, what do you think is our main takeaway for our clients today?
I think I want to keep it simple and just tell our clients, let's focus on what you can control. So we're not going to be able to focus on what the stock market's doing. We, to our even to our surprise, we have very little control over what even happens in Congress or what politicians are doing. But we can focus on a few things. You can focus on your savings rate currently. So what's your lifestyle look like? What can you save, even if it's that minimum effective dose? Let's put something away so that you're taking care of yourself in the future, and really focusing on the investment side, not so much as on the investments themselves, like picking an individual company or an individual cryptocurrency. But let's look again at your asset allocation and the diversification as a whole. Make sure you have that shield of diversification where you are not going to be completely exposed in case something happens. And let's just kind of bring this back to the big picture of what does it take to retire, and can you retire on time, and what are the little tweaks we can do to get you further down that goal.
I think that's exactly right. We have to boil it down to a couple things: consistency and controlling what you can control. If you can do that, you're going to be able to get there. Absolutely. All right. In closing, I'm hoping this was helpful to all of our doctors out there. If you've got any questions for us or any topics that you'd like us to use in the future, you can reach out to us at info@mdfinancialadvisors.com. Thank you, Ben, for joining me today. It was really fun to do this with
Yeah,
you.
my pleasure. It was great.
And doctors, remember, take care of yourself, plan, protect, and prosper.